Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Thursday Thoughts? What on earth are they, I hear you ask? Well, my friend Lucy and I meet every week over on Instagram to talk all things personal growth because she is as obsessed with it as I am. And we decided that we might as well put those conversations out as a weekly podcast. So now you can listen to us chat here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be talking about topics such as spirituality, limiting beliefs, the ego, imposter syndrome, gratitude, meditation, confidence, and so much more. So if you're ready, here we go.
Do you know, speaking of workouts, I completely failed to do mine this morning. For some reason, I'm feeling really exhausted this morning, just like completely knackered. And it's really...
Well, that's probably because of your launch, which you did last week. You probably
possibly
recuperating.
Yeah, and I was up working very late last night, and I went to bed much later than I should have done. And although I was up at 5, I just did not have the energy to do my usual what I normally do. But anyway, I am feeling a bit. So I hope I'm going to be able to contribute to this conversation because I'm feeling a bit like But anyway,
anyhow, so this morning, well, actually, what you just said fits really nicely because this morning we're talking about menopause. We did do this last week, but for some reason, Instagram didn't want to save it. It was playing silly buggers with me. So we're going to do it again because actually there was lots of really good stuff. And I think a lot of both of our audiences are people like us who have been through menopause or going through menopause or in perimenopause. And what you said, Lucy, just then about listening to how your body feels and kind of adjusting appropriately what you're doing is such a brilliant place to start because I think as we go through menopause or as you're going through menopause, one of the most important things that we can all do is listen to our bodies. I truly believe that menopause symptoms are a wake-up call for us, that they are a way of our bodies telling us, kind of going, it's almost like a little alarm system of going, right, what you're doing is no longer working for me. Things need to change. My body's changing. And so actually any sort of menopause symptoms you've got, whether that will be fatigue, aches and pains, hot flashes, whatever it is, it's your body just signaling to you, okay, right, something's got to change. We've got to do something. So that's quite interesting that you just touched like that. So how should we start? What would you think?
I mean, do you want to do your? Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your experience of menopause, and then I can tell everyone a bit about my experience of it, and then we can sort of talk about the things that we do now that we're kind of in menopause, and the sort of whether we can talk about HRT, we can talk about exercise, we talk about diet. But do you want to start? I mean, you are the expert. Well, certainly much more than I am.
Well,
in menopause. And obviously, your podcast was about menopause, perimenopause. So.
Yeah. So basically, for me, when I was in my late 30s, early 40s, things started to really shift and change. Having always been quite an easygoing, calm kind of person, suddenly I found myself being not that anymore. I was really very erratic in my moods. I wasn't a very nice person to the members of my family. I couldn't stop. My sleep was so disrupted. So many aches and pains in my body, huge amount of fatigue, anxiety levels started to rise, and I just didn't know what was going on. I just didn't feel like myself. Yet I had no idea at that point. This is before the explosion and the boom in knowledge and awareness of perimenopause and menopause. So I really just thought I was losing a part of myself. I thought I was going mad. And at one point I thought I had dementia because my memory was going. And it was really, really not a very pleasant 4 years. I struggled on like that, didn't share this with anyone. I did go to the doctor a few times, spoke to them. They just thought I was depressed, so offered me antidepressants. But I knew that it wasn't depression. Something in me just said, it's not depression, but I just didn't know what it was. And it was only when eventually I was having a walk with a friend, and she kind of opened up to me that she had just started an HRT because she was perimenopausal, and I was like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that is. So she explained it all to me, and then she was like, my goodness, that sounds exactly like what you are going through. And also, just to note here, my periods had been absolutely horrendous since I had my third child. So that, was another thing which was really causing me so many issues. And so first of all, I was so relieved that there was an umbrella term to describe all of what I had been feeling, and I realised that I wasn't going mad, and actually this was something that all women were going to go through. But then on the other hand, a massive part of me was so incredibly angry and enraged that I didn't know anything about this, and I had wasted 4 years struggling on unnecessarily. And if I was in this situation, how many more women would there be who are also experiencing the same? So that is what spurred me on to have a big shift in career. I started my podcast, the Positive Perimenopause podcast, because I wanted to explore different ways that women could. Well, first, I wanted to get the message out there about perimenopause and what to look out for, but also explore the different ways that we can help ourselves during this time. Because the thing is, which I've discovered over the years, is that we are all so unique, and not one woman will have the same experience as the other. We're all going to have our own experience of it, and there are so many different factors at play here, and it depends on how we experience it. From our mindset to our physical body to our health to how nutritionally depleted we may be. There are so many reasons why we might be experiencing the symptoms we are. But as I said at the very beginning, those symptoms I see as an opportunity to go, okay, something's not right here. What can we do to work it out? So that's kind of my story. And what I then did is I went on a massive mission to discover those solutions for myself first, to get myself feeling really great. And then I went on a huge journey of personal development, of training, of coaching, and all sorts of things, and then helped other people with it as well. So, and it's kind of led me to where I am here today.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because our stories of perimenopause/menopause are so different, because I actually, like you, I had sort of no idea that I was actually going into early menopause. And back in, I think it's about 20, I'm getting an echo, by the way. Are you hearing an echo?
No.
No, okay, it must just be my end. I just hope it doesn't come out on the recording. But anyway, back in about 2018, 2019, I had a period of about 3 months where I was getting really, really major hot flushes, like really major hot flushes. I didn't know what was going on. And it was very strange. They sort of came out of nowhere, and then after about 3 or 4 months, they completely disappeared.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
Long story short, I'd had a coil for several years. It didn't have removed until about 2019, after the breakup of my last relationship. And I hadn't had a period for years because I'd had a coil. And then when my period still didn't come back, I didn't really think much of it initially, because I thought, well, it probably takes a while after you have a coil taken out, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly in lockdown, so it would have been, I guess, 2020, 2021-ish. In lockdown, I suddenly thought to myself, oh my God, like, I haven't had a period for, like, since I've had my coil taken out for like a year. Like, what is going on? So I went to the doctor, went to the GP, had some tests. He was like, you've got no estrogen. You are in, you are in the early menopause. And I was like, oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Because obviously it's quite a weird thing to find out. I haven't had kids, so even though I pretty much knew that was off the table, there was a part of me that was like, okay, well, that really, because at the time I was like, where am I? I'm 48 now, so I was about 45, 46. So it was still,
Yeah.
And anyway, at that time, I was getting, I never had major symptoms like you did. Like, I didn't have that sort of almost personality change that you experienced at all. I did, you know, so I was really lucky in that respect. But I definitely experienced, and still experience regularly, that sort of brain fog, where for me what happens is that words literally fall out of my head. I will literally, I've done this on the podcast many times. I will be interviewing somebody, I'll be in the middle of a sentence asking them a question, and I will literally forget what I was going to ask. Like, it's just, it's wild. It is wild. Anyway, and at the same time as that, my hot flushes started coming back with a vengeance. In about 2020, 21, when I'd quit the 9 to 5 and started working in a coffee shop, and I was in that coffee shop phase. And I remember being behind the till, and I just remember standing there behind the till, people coming into order their morning coffee, and I would just be like in a muck sweat, and I'd end up having to kind of make a joke about it and saying to people, don't worry, it's just the menopause, it'll go, just ignore me sweating like a pig, you know. In 5 minutes time, then it just kind of, you know, 5 minutes later, I'm totally dry. Very strange. Anyway, I actually went on HRT patches, as you know, very briefly, because I suffer from migraines, and I then had such a bad migraine after about 3 months of being on the patches. And my GP had said to me, because I take daily medication to prevent my migraines because they've been so bad for my, you know, most of my life. And he said to me, there is a small chance that HRT patches will affect the you know, will impact the effectiveness of those pills. So I came off the patches, and actually, kind of by themselves, my hot flushes sort of cleared up, got much better. And then actually in the last 6 months, so basically pretty much this year, 2024, they came back again with a vengeance, to the point where it was just getting ridiculous. Like, I would be, you know, having hot flushes like every hour, when I was sitting not doing anything, just out of nowhere I was suddenly completely covered in sweat, and then 5 minutes later it was gone. So infuriating. So I've actually now about 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, started a different kind of HRT. I'm now on the gel, and I put the gel on in the mornings, and I take progesterone pills at night. And by some miracle, my hot flushes have massively, they haven't completely gone, but they've massively reduced. And I was also experiencing the last few months really bad anxiety, a really horrible feeling of like intense butterflies in the pit of my stomach, which was actually so bad that I ended up talking to my best friend, who was a GP, and she said, look, I really think you should try this different kind of HRT, which I did. The other thing I just want to add about my experience of menopause is that I had to go, because I'm in early menopause, I had to go for a bone density scan, and it transpires that I've got osteopenia, so the kind of early stages of osteoporosis, which has prompted me to get really into strength training, really think more about, you know, my exercise regime. And also the other thing, the main sort of symptom, if that's what you call it, for me, is in the last 2 years, I have put on, well, I've started to lose it now, but I had put on a huge amount of weight very quickly over a period of 2 years, which was, as someone who's never even had to think about their weight, because I've always been very slim, it was a bit of a shock. And funnily enough, I went back for a second bone density scan about 2 weeks ago, because you have to have them every couple of years. And the girl who did my bone density scan, the woman who did it, told me my weight, like, that day when I was there, and my weight 2 years previous. And it was, seeing it in black and white was like, holy fucking shit, I knew I'd put on this weight, and there's the proof. But anyway, so that was probably my biggest kind of grumble about menopause, is that I just put on all of this weight that I wasn't comfortable with. But as you know, I've started really strength training regularly, three or four times a week. I've also really started becoming incredibly intentional about eating a lot of protein every day. And I've already noticed in the last 4 months how my body is starting to come back. Because, and you know, for anyone listening out there who's going, oh my God, you know, it's not about weight. Yes, it's not about weight, but actually it's about how you feel. And I didn't feel like me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to be one of those people who just went, oh, well, you know, I've gone into the menopause. Now I'm in middle age. Therefore, you know, I'm just going to accept the fact that I've got this like middle-aged spread that I've never had before. I personally, we're all different, but personally for me, I was not okay with that. So I decided to freaking take control back and do something about it. So yes, that is that was my experience of menopause.
It's so good to hear, Lucy, that you have completely taken control of both those things. Well, and the anxiety, the weight, the sarcopenia, and you are now doing intentional actions, which is really reversing those horrible symptoms, which is such a brilliant, brilliant advert to the fact that actually we can all do it. And I know, because I was in such a low place with it all, and now I honestly feel great, and I feel probably stronger than I've ever done before. A couple of things to pick up on what you just said. Firstly, the weight gain is obviously a big, big issue with so many women. There are reasons for that. Our metabolic rate slows as we age. And also what happens is, and because of that, I think we need to talk about blood sugar levels, balancing a little bit, because as we go through menopause and as we get older, we become less insulin resistant. And what that means is that we are not able to process excess glucose levels in our blood as well, which means more of it gets stored as fat. So when we eat like sugary foods or really high carbohydrate foods, we get big spikes in our blood sugar levels. And generally what happens then is insulin is released, and it helps to bring those blood sugar levels back into a good range. What happens though is when we become less insulin resistant, that doesn't happen as well. So we have elevated glucose levels. So we've got more glucose swimming around, and it needs to go somewhere. So it gets stored in fat, and mainly around our belly, because that's like an easy place for it to be stored. Also on the glucose levels, obviously the higher the spike in glucose, ultimately the lower the drop. And that is when you get the cravings, that is when you get that real hangry feeling. And if you start your day with a sugary, caffeined breakfast, because caffeine also spikes our blood sugar, or you start with a cup of coffee and no food to balance it out, you're going to start your day going up on that roller coaster, and then you're going to go down, and you're going to have the drop and the up and down. So you're on it. So a really good solution for that is to have your caffeine with your breakfast and have a protein-rich breakfast. Now, that protein-rich breakfast can be like a really nice full-fat protein-rich Greek yogurt with fruit, with nuts and seeds, or it can be a savoury breakfast. And we've talked about this before, haven't we, about whether protein or sweet breakfast is better. I mean, I always think if you have a tendency for sweet things and sweet snacks, I would try and have a savoury breakfast more than you have a sweet breakfast, because it kind of is going to stop that want, that willingness, that kind of desire for cravings. But I think the most important thing to really try and get in is to make sure you've got a protein-rich breakfast, because it's going to really help stabilise that blood sugar as you go through the day. And if you can start off on the right foot, it's going to really help you reduce your cravings. It's going to help you eat better. I don't know about you, but I know that if I start my day right, I tend to eat better as the day goes on. So that's kind of what that really helps with your blood sugar. And it really does make a bit of a difference, because if your blood sugar is spiking and dropping all through the day, cortisol, your stress hormone, is also released to try and help balance that out, because if your blood sugar is going up and down, it's like an internal form of stress. So we don't want that either. And then also, if we can start to build muscle, because muscle is more metabolically active than fat. So if you've got more muscle, your metabolic rate is going to be working better for you.
Hence the
exactly. And as we go through, and also strength training isn't just good for our muscles, because our muscles, we lose muscle mass as we age, but we also lose 20% of our bone mass kind of in the 5 to 7 years post menopause. So that's when we start getting things like osteopenia, the beginning parts of osteoporosis. 1 in 3 of us at the moment will get osteoporosis, which is that when your bones become brittle, a little bit like an aero bar, they get holey and brittle. So that is why it is so important to strength train, to do some sort of activity in your week, 3 times a week or so, which builds and it just maintains your muscles. It's not even necessarily about getting bigger muscles, it's about just maintaining the strength of our muscles, not our muscles, our bones, well, our bones and our muscles. But we just need to keep that resistance, whether that is, some people say, well, yoga that is a type of resistance, Pilates, but actually the more we can actually load our bones and our muscles, the better.
One thing I will say is that when I went for this bone density scan the other week, this woman was so lovely and helpful, and she to assure anyone listening to this or watching this, you can reverse this. Like, I can reverse as I say, I have osteopenia, which is the beginning stages, the early stages of osteoporosis. But as she confirmed, you absolutely can reverse it, and which I'm determined to do, hence leaning into the strength training. And what I'll say about strength training, anyone thinking, oh my God, because it's funny, because I started quote unquote strength training about a year ago, just a bit more than a year ago, but I wasn't really doing it. I wasn't using weights, and it was just a bit of a pathetic attempt, to be quite honest. And then actually, when I was kind of at my heaviest about 6 months ago, I just thought, this is not okay. I need to do this, not just for weight, but for my health, and longevity and all of that. And what I've done is I have joined Davina McCall's membership, Own Your Goals. And I've bought myself some, pretty light weights, various different. I've got like 3 kilogram, 4 kilogram, 5 kilogram. I think I've got 6 kilogram as well. No, 5 kilogram. Anyway, there is a 6-week strength plan with a woman called Lily on Davina's Own Your Goals. I pay $12.99 a month, and I do that 3 or 4 times a week. And it's, as I say, it's a 6-week strength plan, but I just kind of go over it, again and again, and I kind of just pick out workouts, and I do generally 1 lower body, 1 upper body, 1 full body, and then normally another upper body, actually. But that that is something that I do from home. Yes, it costs me $12.99 a month to be in that membership. I also do sessions on a rebounder, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a mini trampoline, which is also really good for bone density. So what I tend to do is I'll do about 15-20 minutes on my rebounder, followed by about 25 minutes of strength training, about 20-25 minutes. So that's my kind of routine. And then I will have a protein-rich breakfast. But Polly, one thing I just want to say that I really, really, really struggle with, and I don't know what to do about this. I am that person who gets up and the first fucking thing I do is I make my coffee. I cannot function. I feel like I tell myself over and over again that I cannot function without coffee. So I will, generally I will come down, I'll glug some water, then I'll make a coffee, and I'll have a coffee before I then do either go for an early morning walk or then get on my rebounder, blah, 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 blah. I would find the thought of not being able to have caffeine until after I've done my workout, until I have breakfast, makes me want to cry. So is it really, really, really that bad to have coffee on an empty stomach first thing? Because that I cannot tell you how much it pains me to have to give up that first thing in the morning caffeine and to be like, oh, I think I'll just have a cup of tea instead. No, it's not going to cut it.
Well, you have to weigh up the pros and cons. A coffee is it black coffee or has it got milk in it?
It's got a splash of oat milk. That's it. Like, literally, I put a tiny dash in.
So it will spike your blood sugar. So it's starting your blood sugar off with a spike. So if you don't have cravings through the day and you feel pretty balanced, then well, there you go.
Yeah.
Then it's totally fine. If you were coming to me and saying, I'm having terrible cravings, I'm suffering with anxiety, I would say to you, if we can, let's see if we can kind of reduce that and cut that out. But if your anxiety has subsided and you are not getting those cravings and you enjoy it, then bloody enjoy that cup of
Yeah.
coffee.
I'm
That's what
so
I would
glad
say.
I'm so glad you say that. And actually, what's interesting is that since I've really ramped up the protein in my diet, like big time, very, very intentionally, I am noticing that I am not hungry in between meals. That is partly because I always drink a lot of water, and I think sometimes we think we're hungry, but actually we're just thirsty and we just need some water. And so often when you, like, I constantly have this pink water bottle by my side, as you probably noticed, all the time. I'm constantly swigging from it. And I think that definitely makes a difference. But I've definitely noticed that by eating a lot of protein, like, you know, I had breakfast before we came on, and I don't find that I get any cravings during the day, and actually I would say a pretty bloody healthy diet. And I will have a snack mid-morning. I'll have an apple with some almond butter, which is my favorite snack ever. It rocks. And then I might have a snack in the afternoon. I might have some Greek yogurt with nuts and seeds and blueberries and raspberries and flaxseed. And actually, just over to you for this, because I know that flaxseed is a really, really important thing to try and get into our diet in menopause. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, well,
Is it
there's a couple of things.
phytoestrogen?
Phytoestrogens, yeah. Well, a couple of things here. A lot of us, as we go into menopause, aren't eating enough nutrients, and particularly if you have had kids and you've breastfed, often we're going into this stage of life really depleted because we have never given ourselves a chance of it. But generally, as we get to our late 30s, 40s, a lot of us have just perhaps been burning the candles at both ends and just aren't as vibrantly, nutritionally full as we could be. So the advice is, and this is really for anybody, is to eat at least 30 different types of plants every single day. Now that sounds quite a lot, but that includes things like nuts, seeds, grains, obviously fruits and veg, herbs, spices. So if we can get 30 in, then you're going to be really looking after your microbiome, and it's going to really help with getting enough nutrients in. At menopause and perimenopause, eating a type of food which are called phytoestrogens is really beneficial, because phytoestrogens are structured in a similar way to the estrogen which we produce in our body. So although it's not kind of like it's not the same as estrogen, it is really, really good for us and in terms of balancing our hormones. And a really good, strong type of phytoestrogen, which is brilliant for us, is flaxseed or linseed. I never know what it's called. It's the same thing.
I know. I think it's the same thing. I currently normally it's flaxseed, but sometimes it's linseed.
Yeah.
It is the same thing, isn't it?
Because I get mine, I buy it fresh. I buy fresh ground linseed online from a place in Sussex called the Linseed Farm. It arrives, it's fresh, it's kind of packed up, and so I just keep that in the fridge, and I'll put a couple of tablespoons on yogurt, in smoothies, whatever. And I just feel that that's doing me so much good, because not only is it mimicking estrogen in a way, but it also helps to take some of the bad, crappy stuff out of our bodies as well. So yes, flaxseed, linseed, whatever you call it, is a really good one to have. But we also find, in lots of different fruits and veggies, you can find these phytoestrogens, particularly in green leafy veg, things like cruciferous vegetables, things like cabbages, broccoli, sprouts, all those sorts of things are brilliant. Ultimately, if we are eating a whole food diet, and you're having a variety of different fruits and veggies and herbs and spices, you can't go too far wrong. If we can reduce our processed food and eat whole foods, that's the answer. I know it's hard in this day and age. It's like you just have to walk around the supermarket and you're just being bombarded with all the packaged processed stuff. So you have to really intentionally try. But it's just creating those habits.
Also, I just wanted to add before I forget that I find that the more healthy food that you eat, the more you want to. So actually, if you're somebody who does eat a lot of processed food and, you know, doesn't eat particularly well, and the thought of eating, you know, salads and vegetables and whole foods and all, you know, quote unquote healthy diet, if that sounds like a, oh God, nightmare to you, actually, all it takes is just making a decision to commit to yourself to do it for, say, 1 week. And I guarantee you that if you eat super healthily for 1 week, you are going to want to carry on eating healthily. When I'm in a phase where I'm eating crap, and boy, can I go through phases of eating crap, like I'm a chocolate fiend. Like,
well, me too.
right. So, I mean, I can literally eat a giant share pack of Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
Me too.
Like those giant chocolate buttons. The share pack is my that is my kryptonite, and I don't do it very often, but I can absolutely do that. And so, but when I eat something that's not so healthy, I want more of it.
Yeah.
As soon as I stop and I get back into healthy mode and I start eating really good, healthy, then I get excited about a salad. But when I'm in a share pack of giant chocolate buttons mode, I just want more of that.
I'm the same.
So it really is,
yeah,
you know,
I am exactly the same. I have such a sweet tooth. It annoys me intensely how sweet my tooth is. And I go through phases where I literally cannot walk past a shop if I'm out without nipping in and getting a chocolate bar or something. And then I eat it too quickly, don't truly savor it, and then I feel so crap about it. So, but I find that when I'm intentionally on a healthy eating drive, and I like this morning I've had my celery juice, I did have yogurt and fruit and stuff, and I just feel like now, oh, I'm on it today. So it means that hopefully the rest of my week is going to flow like that, and I'm intentionally saying to myself, right, I'm not having any chocolate this week, you know. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to completely be too militant, because if you're too militant, then actually that's when you feel like you're lacking. You don't want to have to feel like you're lacking. It's more about, what do I get to eat? What can I, you know, it's that abundance mindset again. Totally. One last thing, Lucy, before we finish, which we haven't discussed, which is often the bit of which I feel gets forgotten, which is like what we've nearly done. You know, when we come to talk about menopause, we talk about, well, we can talk about hormones and we can talk about HRT, which we haven't, but that's obviously the narrative which is out there from a lot of the experts. They talk about HRT, but so I'm sure a lot of people know about that. But yes, diet, exercise, but the final piece, which is forgotten, is stress, because stress is such an aggravator of menopause symptoms. So when we go through menopause, very simply, what happens is our hormones, of our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone levels are really reduced. And so what happens is your adrenal glands sort of take over the job, because our ovaries aren't producing those hormones anymore. So our adrenal glands do produce a little bit of those hormones of estrogen and progesterone, but our adrenal glands also produce cortisol, adrenaline, our stress hormones. So if we are really stressed out, which most of us are as we go through our lives, the body always prioritizes stress and managing stress. It's because it's part of our survival. So instead of giving us those smaller doses, which is how we're designed as we go through menopause, of estrogen and progesterone from the adrenal glands, it doesn't happen, because if we're stressed, the body just prioritizes the cortisol and the adrenaline. So it's really fundamental that we take steps to get us out of that consistent, constant level of fight or flight, which most of us are operating in. We're operating in this sort of low level stress state, and return back to a flexible nervous system. So our body, after it's had the stress, you know, we're all going to get stressed. But what we want is, when we finish that stress, when the stress is complete, our body can move back into the relaxed rest and digest parasympathetic, so that it's then, when it's stressed, it can go stressed again, and then so we want that flexibility. And so finding techniques which help us with that flexibility and building our capacity to be able to hold more and become more resilient, which also is really important. And I know, for hands down, that doing practices like breath work, meditation are just the best things for that. They just absolutely work wonders in helping with that flexibility.
Yeah. And one thing, I mean, you're so right. I couldn't agree more, as you know already. But one thing I'll say about both of those things is that consistency is key.
Yep.
And I know that breathwork can change our state, like, in 8 minutes, but also the cumulative effect of doing breathwork / meditation over a period of time. That's what we want to be doing. It's like anything. We've got to be consistent with these things. It's no use us kind of eating really well for a week and then completely falling off, or meditating every day for a week and then not meditating for a month, or, doing strength training for 2 weeks and then not doing it for 2 weeks. I mean, I just believe in the power of consistency so much, and we don't want to hear it. We don't want to fucking hear it, because it's like, oh my god, well, you know what? We just have to take responsibility. We just have to understand that if we want to live our best lives, we've got to be consistent with certain things. And meditation in particular, I think, is one of those things that it's so easy to just quit because you're like, oh, it's not working and I'm not feeling anything. Well, of course you're not, if you've only been doing it for 3 days. You've got to do it for 3 months, and then you're going to start reaping the benefits. And so I think that's really, really important. One thing I just wanted to add before we wrap up, because it's 9:36. Oh my God, what are we like? But going back to the diet thing, and you and I talking about our obsession with chocolate, of course, we're not saying you have to be complete, and you mentioned this, we don't have to be ridiculously regimented about it 24/7, 365. And I think it's more about just finding that balance. So if you're eating really, really well, 80% of the time and 20% of the time you're allowing yourself, fine, totally fine. But really, consistency is the key to so many things in life. I truly believe that, not least all of the things that we've talked about today.
Yeah, and it's when you fall off the wagon, which you are probably going to fall off the wagon, that you don't just give up and go, oh God, well, I've stopped now, so I might as well just give up. It's about just going, okay, I've fallen off, but tomorrow's a new day. I'm just going to jump back on tomorrow and start that again.
Yeah.
So, and it's just giving yourself grace about it. We're all human beings, but it's last thing. Since I was in those depths of perimenopause, from about my early 40s, when I was recommended a back operation from the specialist because my joints were so stiff, and I refused it, thinking, no, every single day, say 5 out of 7 days of the week, so not every single day, I would roll out of bed, I did a series of stretches, I started then building up my strength. And do you know what? I've done that consistently, I don't know now, for over many years, 10 years. And my back, touch wood, is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And so these things, they work. It is, as you say, it's consistency. It's just little and often, doing it little and often. So, yes. So much to say on this subject.
I know we could carry on, but well, look, thanks everyone for watching / listening, and we'll be back this time next week.
We will. And if anybody wants to catch this on one of our podcasts, they can come and find us on our podcast, and you can find us there too. So,
all right,
brilliant. Thanks, love.
Lovely to see you, baby. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
See you later. Bye.